Okay, we're going to start with reporting category 2. We're going to talk about rate of change and slope, graphing equations and inequalities, graphing systems of linear equations, linear transformations, and how to use your calculator with linear functions. So first we're going to start off with types of slope. So this is basically a review of the different types of slope you can have. So some things to help you remember what WWSDS, what would slope dude say? Remember, positive slopes start low on the left and go up, so puff, puff, positive. Negative slopes slant down, so the left side is high and the right side is low for nice negative. That means your slope has to have a negative sign with it. Zero slopes, those are your Hoy lines, your horizontal. The O in Hoy is supposed to remind you about the slope is zero, and those are y equals equations. That is when you have a zero in your numerator. Remember, this is zero fun. And then undefined slopes, those are your up and down lines. Up and down lines, those are your VUX, your vertical lines. The U in VUX is supposed to remind you that the slope is undefined. Those are your x equals equations. And for rise over run, your zero is in the denominator because you cannot divide by zero. Your calculator will give you an error. So how do we find the slope or the rate of change from various representations? Well, for points, tables, and graphs, you are simply going to use your calculator. So what you're going to do, function notation. So they are telling me that my x value are the values inside the parentheses. So I have 7 and 4. And they're telling me when x is 7, my y value is equal to 1. And when 4 is my x value, my y value is negative 1. And for the table, here are your x values, negative 3, negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, and your y values are negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, and 2. So now we are going to graph. Look at the graph, and you can see the direction that the graph is slanting. It is slanting downward. So that tells me it's going to be, I know my slope is going to be negative. So what we're going to do now is we are actually going to use the calculator to determine our slope. So let me get my calculator ready here. All right, so I'm going to use the Wabbit app that's on my phone. So what we're going to do is we're just going to stat enter, and we're going to type in our values. So 7 enter, 4 enter, and then type in my y values, 1, negative 1. And now to get our slope, because this is a linear function, we're going to pick option 4, not option 0 like we did for exponential. So stat over 4. And that should say a line, and we're going to enter down to calculate. And you should see y equals ax plus b. That's going to tell me it's a line. So y equals ax plus b. My a is 0.6 repeating, which I know is the same as 1/3. And my b value is negative 3.6 repeating. So that is the same as negative 3 and 1/3. And my slope value, my calculator, is always going to be my a because my a is by my slope. So my slope is 1/3. Okay, same thing for the table. So I'm going to clear my memory. And I'm going to go to stat, enter, and I'm going to type in, ooh, it didn't clear it out second, plus 7, 1, 2. There we go. Stat, enter. I'm going to type in my x values, negative 3, negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, 2. Stat over 4. An arrow down to enter or enter all the way down. And my a, y equals ax plus b. So a is equal to 1, b is equal to 1, and my slope is 1. It's my a value because in my equation my a value is beside the x. It's the coefficient of x. All right, so now how do I use my calculator on a graph? Well, simple. You can pull off good points. And good points have to be on the corner of squares, okay? So it has to be where you can clearly see the x and clearly see the y. So this point has -3, 2. I've also got 0, 0. And then I've also got this point here, 3, -2. So now I'm going to second plus 7, 1, 2. Clear my calculator and stat enter. And I'm going to type in -3, 0, 3. 2, 0, -2. Oh, -2. Stat over 4 if it's a line. And this tells me y equals ax plus b, so I know I picked the right option. A is equal to a -0.6 repeating, so that's the same as -1/3. And my b is equal to 0, and -1/3 is my slope. And see, the line slants down, my slope value was negative. Okay, for equations, all you have to do is you have to make sure that they are in y equals format. Okay, and then you're just going to look for the coefficient of x. So in the first one, the coefficient of x is 1/5. So here's x. There's my coefficient. So my slope is 1/5. For the second one, oh, it's not in y equals, so we have to do some rearranging. So I'm going to move my x over. And I've got -5y equals 15 minus x. So now I'm going to divide by my coefficient of y. And that's going to be y equals 15 divided by -5 is -3. -1 divided by -5 is going to give me positive 1/5 times x. And now I'm looking for x, so don't leave that x off. Here's my x. And my slope is the coefficient. I have to make sure I know the sign of that coefficient. So my slope is 1/5. And here, again, I see parentheses, so I'm looking to see if I need to distribute, and I sure do. I have to distribute the 1/5. I have to multiply by x, so that's going to give me 1/5 x. And 1/5 times a -5 is going to give me a -1. And then I just bring down my y plus 2 because there's just an invisible 1, and if we multiply anything by 1, it won't change its value. And to get it to y equals, all I have to do is move that 2 over. So y equals 1/5 x. And when I move that 2 over, it becomes a -2, and now I have like terms. So when I combine a -1 with a -2, I get -3. And again, I'm looking for my x because x marks the slope, and the coefficient of x is a positive 1/5. So my slope is, again, positive 1/5. And since my slope is positive for all three equations, I know that my line is going to slant up like the puff, puff, positive line in that direction. And now verbal. So you're looking for maybe some clue words, miles per hour, feet per second, something like that, words per minute. So I'm going to look. A mountain climber starts. Oh, we remember this from exponential. Starts is telling us our initial value. So that's also your y-intercept. So your y-intercept, where did he start? His climb, 1,200 meters. So our y-intercept is 1,200. And the climber can descend. If you are descending, what direction are you going? Down and descend both start with D. So this is telling me that he is going down the mountain. So if he's climbing down the mountain, is that mountain slanting up like the puff, puff, positive, or down like the nice negative? And hopefully you said it slants down like the nice negative line. Well, how quickly is he going down? Speed. Speed is another rate, and rate is slope. So his speed, his rate, his slope is 170 miles per hour. However, meters, we're using meters. Meters per hour. He would not be climbing at miles per hour. That would be super fast. Meters per hour. But because he's going down, I have to assign the negative sign to that to indicate direction. So the slope is negative 170 to show that he is traveling in the negative or downward direction.